where you find that they must look at the same.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
All right, welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television, and we're now set to bring you the newspaper review from select national dailies. And as is the tradition here, we start with the Daily Trust. And on the Daily Trust, we have the major story, a complete, if you like, a radical departure from everyday reporting. We are staying with the developments around AFCON. Why Nigeria lost 2025 AFCON bid to Morocco. Economy not hosting a priority, Rep Committee Chair. I'm not sure he understands the link between hosting and the impact of those spendings on the economy, whether it is in fixing infrastructure. He just doesn't understand it. I mean, sport is a big business.
Listen,
we
are a sporting powerhouse,
yes,
but we don't have the infrastructure.
We're slipping,
I will be honest about it. I am not even ashamed to say we don't have the facilities.
We're slipping 14 powerhouse.
We don't have it.
You saw the images that came out from the sport festival, where we cramped over 20 people into a room sleeping on the floor, and you expect those athletes to
our own Adeni Ajifashe is there to cover some of these developments. Listen, there are very few states. You can talk about Delta, Akwa Ibom. That's about it. Maybe River State to some extent.
Yeah.
They do have some facilities, but
in Lagos,
Abuja,
it's neither controversial. It is. Yeah. To other riders there, we're wearing strong contenders. Lumumba event would have brought fortunes. Kof and Sauri. It's something we have to review. Especially because we also have a sport enthusiast as a president. If you have to create jobs and galvanize the youth, you must keep them busy. Those adrenalines, we must find positive ways of dispensing them.
Even the banditry and the insurgency thing, it will be significantly addressed because most of these youths are talented in sports.
Yeah. All right, to other stories on the window. Wike sacks heads of 21 FCT agencies. You'll find that on page 4.
I want to see his wrecking ball, because it appears he has a wrecking ball.
He does have 271.9 billion goods unsold in the first half of 2023. This is coming from the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. And to a disturbing one, diphtheria, UNICEF sends 9.3 million vaccine doses to Kano and 6 other states. But we understand this has spread to about 18 states, so we hope it also goes further than this. To other stories, Maulud, governors Khan, Abbas preach unity, peaceful coexistence. Access Bank invests over 200 billion in agribusiness. Vehicle import at Tinkan drops from 32,000 to 4,000 in 5 years. There's something big happening there. And no regret leaving banking for greenhouse farming, young entrepreneur. And I think that's the way to go for most of our young minds. And that's it on the front page of the Daily Trust.
This Nigeria is up next, so let's take a look at the front page of this Nigeria. Wike fires 21 officials in FCTA parastatals, agencies and companies. Nigeria ranks 6th in the world or in global food inflation rates, according to a report. This is not the kind of ranking that we should be proud about. And the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria says manufacturing sector records 3,567 job losses in the first quarter of 2023. So it's not just the business is shrinking, it's people losing their jobs also, their livelihood. And that in itself is very disturbing. And in that picture, you have the governor of Kwara State, Abdurrahman Abdurazak, alongside the emir of Ilorin and a host of others. There's also the Grand Qadi of the Court of Appeal. I think this was part of the Maulud celebration yesterday in the state capital, Ilorin. In other news, reduced number of BDC operators to 200. Federal government tells CBN. Are they that many?
Well, that's what they're telling us. I don't know how
it's one of those unregulated sectors that has this very immense power in determining that particular sector in the exchange rate. Scores feared dead as Nigeria Air Force bombs IPOB hideouts in Anambra and Imo. And bandits kill 6, injure 4 others in fresh southern Kaduna attack. NURT to NLC don't meddle in our internal crisis. And that's about it on the front page of this Nigeria.
Yeah, just to add to what you said, at the last count, we had about 5,400 BDCs in Nigeria.
5,000? Wow.
That big. Well, they describe some of them as political BDCs. You know what that
Round
means.
tripping pays a lot.
All right, we'll move on to the Punch newspaper, celebrating 50 years of robust journalism. And the major story there stays with Labour. Labour faults FG's meeting, insists on indefinite strike. Any fresh meeting won't stop us. It's going to be the mother of all strikes, Labour Union vows. An FG new meeting date will be determined, will be announced. TUC asks government to account for subsidy removal savings.
Is it just me, or is the federal government not bothered at all by all this strike
Is it
talk?
the federal government, or it's Nigerians not even bothered about the strike talk? I think we've got to a point where we have practically almost lost faith in the ability of the unions to negotiate anything good for Nigerians. And every time you listen to demands, you wonder whether they even understand what they're asking for. If you're just asking for salary increase for a population of workers that is less than a tenth of total population, what happens to the other people who don't have access to those income? So it's basically people in public service asking to appropriate the entire budget of the country for their own welfare. You want everybody to work and serve you, and that's ain't going to work. So they probably would be changing their negotiation terms. I'm not speaking against Labour, but I'm just speaking to what. Yeah. All right, at the risk of being considered anti-Labour, I have to issue that disclaimer. Can governors preach peace, hope at Eid Mulid? Fenifere accuses Obasanjo of ridiculing Obas, demands apology. I thought the wife had apologized.
Are we still talking about that? Oh, he has actually,
Well, he stood by his words.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
But also, there was a new video of him yesterday making the rounds of him prostrating before one of the traditional rulers. I think he just had a moment. I mean, the man is 80-something years old. Give him a break.
Ondo woman kills husband with pistol and flees. Pipeline repairs gulf 35 billion in 18 months. Vandalism persists. That's according to a report. And just above the name marks there, debt crisis, top tax waivers, IMF tells Nigeria. It's about time. And Afrexim Bank seeks buyers for NNPCL's crude. Wow.
Wait, they're seeking buyers? I thought Dangote just lost out on some of the...
contrasting developments there. Chicago academic record, Atiku plans fresh suit against Tinubu. That's it on the front page of the Punch newspaper. We now have joining us in the studio as usual, Marlon Nasser Lawal. I understand last week I wasn't here. He went completely off whatever I would have expected to avoid any homogeneity in the colors and choice of his clothing. But he's back to his regular self this week, slightly escaping Ahmed and myself. But we'll continue to monitor. Marlon Nasser Lawal is the editor-in-chief, Dateline newspaper. It's a pleasure to always have you.
Good morning, Marlon Nasser.
Good morning. Good morning. It's good to be here.
Today, the Daily Trust went completely, no, off track is not the word. Flew against the tide, if you like, leading with a sports story. And it's about how we felt when the results of the next AFCONs were announced. We know today, and not just today, from history, how we gained the Festac villages in Lagos were as a result of our hosting of the events. The games village in Abuja is a testament. The infrastructure, some of the roads to the airports had to be put in those because there were demands for some of those games we hosted. There are always opportunities to concentrate on our athletes, improve infrastructures, went into collaboration with transporters that moved these people everywhere. It always gives you room to upgrade facility and all of that.
I remember the Conga games.
Or the Chogom.
Yeah.
You know, and all of that. Do you think that we understood, whether from the perspective of government or the people who put those bits together on our behalves, did we completely understand how much this meant? Did we put our best foot forward to the extent that a committee member is saying that economy is the priority of government and not sport?
Well, let me start by saying that this is not the first time that Daily Trust will be, going against the tide, like you said, to lead with a story that people don't consider maybe routine, so to say. That's if you look at the number of newspaper stories that used to lead the newspaper. And then there is also the fact that I don't understand the angle from which we are trying to report all the story, because honestly, it's not about Nigeria losing, so to say. Yes, we didn't get the opportunity to have the hosting right, but then from what the CAF official said, Nigeria wanted to support Morocco, because Morocco is also trying to host the 2030 World Cup jointly with Spain, I think, and Portugal. So maybe it's another way of one African country supporting another. And then when you look at the economic aspect of it, honestly, I don't know what the honorable member is trying to say. Maybe if he had said this long ago, probably would have understood maybe his own line of argument. But like you said, if Nigeria is able to host an event of this magnitude, the country will benefit. So many things will come to the country, in terms of foreign exchange.
Hotel industry,
everybody will benefit.
There's a big business.
So many people will benefit. So I don't understand why the honorable member will be saying things like he wants to be honest to himself, and nobody is questioning his.
Does this also signpost this lack of understanding and appreciation? Because over the years, the sports industry is almost going moribund, so to say, because it is going untapped. At one point, Nigeria is the shining glory of the African continent in terms of the talent.
Yeah.
But you look at the sports industry globally, it's $1 trillion economy itself, isn't it? Whether it's football, whether it's basketball, whether it's American football. I mean, just TV rights itself. I mean, look at what's happening with the English Premier League. The amounts of money that goes in to the UK economy as a result of the buying and selling, the contracts and all of these things, the investments that is coming from Saudi Arabia, the Arab Emirates and things like that. Isn't it obvious that we're missing out on this thing big time?
Well, like you said, I think Saudi Arabia is one country that we should all look out to. Like the Crown Prince was saying, there was this accusation that they are engaging in sport washing, their human rights record and what have you. And then his response to that was that, look, you can say whatever you want to say, but we are going to continue because with football now, I was able to raise my GDP, with a 1% raise, and I'm looking for another 1.5%.
To about
yes,
3
and I'm looking for another 1.5. So if you continue all that, so it shows you, what countries are actually doing. The oil is no longer giving us the money that we need. So we actually have to look.
Even if it was from the point of view of even preparing athletes as a structured migration process, Brazil does that. They are interested, in fact, in the kind of contract you offer their young lads. They have they have laws around what age you can go out. They have laws around a baseline that you can, a threshold that you cannot drop beyond. And they develop facilities and now consider sports as one important export material. All tied to FDIs from their own people. And then when you go to places like United States, it's not even about the games. It's about how sport is now leading innovations in sports science, in recoveries, in all of that. And so you now find medical and athlete university, sort of, merging science and athletes and finding ways to, and nutrition, by the way, to bring out things that they are now applying to other sectors. So the whole concept of losing weight now is from structured programs from these places. How do we begin to, what do we need to do, to begin to trace back steps to a place where we can begin to harness this kind of benefit, engage a number of these youths sufficiently enough in these things so that they can earn a living from it. The big corporate companies get some branding opportunities out of that, and everybody wins from the process.
So many countries are trying to tap into the world of sport. Like, we keep saying, look at China, for instance. China, long-term planning, so to say. They want to ensure that there are 50 million youths you know, playing soccer in the next 10 or so years. And you know what they are trying to achieve with that is the fact that they want to be counted among the best, you know, across the globe. And then if they are also able to make money, the country of origin will benefit. Like if you have Chinese people playing basketball in the United States of America, playing football in
England and
you
all.
know, China will benefit, even if it is just the mention of that country, you know, because if you have been mentioned in good stead, honestly, it's
Rubs
something,
off.
yeah, but like you also said in the course of your introduction, when you talk about sports, you know, it's engaging the youth. You know, all this negative energy that
The
you
vices,
see.
the drugs,
Yeah, if you are able
cultism.
to,
Yeah.
if you are able to get them to
They can channel that energy,
you know, to competition. Honestly, it's better for the country.
I would say it's a missed opportunity, seriously. But if we can get back to the front page, Wike Sachs, heads of 21 FCT agencies. Your thoughts?
Well, I will expect something like this to come because when you have a new head in an organization, you know, he wants to
Bring changes.
Yeah, so that.
But is this normal? Because sometimes I like to think that you take your time and you assess their performance, and not everybody has to go. Obviously, those who underperform have to go. But is this fair to say that when Sunday and I were going through some of the agencies, I mean, some of them sound new to us. We didn't even know they existed in the first place. And I suppose that makes the argument that we didn't know them because probably they were not performing. Is this just the Wike brand of doing things, or do you think there's some justification? Because other ministers have come and this wholesale changes didn't take place.
Well, you know, FCT is remarkably different from other ministries, so to say. But maybe we'll have to wait and see. Probably some of them may come back, you know, since he has not appointed their replacement. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've not read anywhere, you know, about their replacement.
No, he said in due time.
So maybe by the time we see the replacements, we'll now know whether some of them are coming back or not.
Do you think they're coming back?
Well, maybe one or two of them may come back because we never know. But I will expect from what we see, you know, some of them may not come back, or many of them may not come back. And it's for the minister to be allowed all the latitude for him to, you know, let's see what he has to offer, so that at the end of the day, there will be no excuse, you know, for him saying, it's because I was not given the opportunity to put my people in
undermined.
And things like that. So when you give people the latitude, you know, the opportunity to bring in all the hands that they require, that they need to succeed, then we wait for time to see whether it will be justified.
All right. The manufacturers were saying that goods manufactured this year, totaling about 277 billion thereabout, have been unsold for the first half of this year. That signals something not very pleasant. It clearly shows that purchasing power has gone down. And that's also not good for them. That can lead to redundancy in this, because if inventories remained unsold, there will be no need to produce new ones. Are you worried about this kind of result?
Well, I'm really worried because if you see from the angle, another newspaper reported it, they reported it from the angle of job losses. And you know, when you have job losses and an economy that is literally struggling, then you are likely to see an increase in crime, you know, in all negative indices. So I don't know how the government can come in, but then sometimes it has to do with security, it has to do with maybe absence of clear government policies, because today you hear something and then tomorrow you are hearing another. Like when Adams Oshomole was asking the new CBN governor during his appearance before the Senate, you know, just literally making the argument that the government has to intervene in a way to have some forex stability. And you don't know the number of people who have keyed into the fact that the government is trying to unify, you know, all the rates and all that. And then now, by the time government deviates from that, so many people will now be in the cold. So honestly, it's not a good thing that manufacturers who are helping the government in creating job opportunities are now struggling to even remain afloat, and then we are battling with.
And this is a steady decline, isn't it? I mean, it's been going on for quite some time now. But if we can just take a final look at the diphtheria situation, UNICEF is trying to aid the government's response efforts with 9.3 million vaccines. I think this is the worst case of diphtheria outbreak we've had in recorded history in this country. Over 450 plus deaths, mostly minors. Give me a sense of what is happening, because the majority of it is in northern Nigeria. Kano is the epicenter based on the available data. What do you make of the response and, you know, issue around routine immunization? For instance, there are local governments with zero routine immunization record.
Yeah, and when it comes to election, you see them covering, you know, 100%. All the nooks and cranny. And now that it has to do with the health of the populace, they are like literally, you know, caught off guard. It's good that UNICEF is trying, but when you look at the magnitude, the number of states affected, I think 16 or so, 18 and then you are now having some 7 states. You know, it's a welcome development because we can do with all the help, we can do with all the support that we can get. But honestly, our respective state governments, you know, should worry that we are still battling with, because this is basic, so to say. This is something that shouldn't be
we're
considered
talking about preventable deaths.
Yes, yes, things that we can prevent. But like I said, we are like what we take as important, you know, is the problem. We consider things that have no value on our well-being, you know, but this something that has to do with our health, the health of the populace. And I think we're not paying the right attention.
It should be declared a national health emergency at this point.
Certainly it is.
Absolutely. And what a fitting way to bring this conversation to a close. We hope that those at the aim of affairs, those who need to take the actions that are necessary are listening, and not just listening, but are also prepared to go right in and make the right decisions and help save more lives from being lost. We've lost so much already from all kinds of preventable death, including hunger, severe hunger as it is called. I want to thank you very much for finding time to be here. We wish we could have had the time to go more, but today has been a very tight one.
Thank you for having me.